What's up guys, today I wanted to revisit the POCO F3. So this is one of my favorite mid-rangers. Like I said, I made a video a few days ago talking about mid-rangers. This is one of the mid-rangers that I actually like. And just checking up on the price of this phone, on eBay, it's funny because the price hasn't really changed too much. It's still sort of trending around 300 to 250 bucks depending on the condition. And like I said, I don't cover Xiaomi phones a lot, but I know Xiaomi, the brand, is very popular overseas in Asia. I think my second largest audience on this channel is India, and I know it's really popular over there as well. So I just really like this phone, mostly because of the IR blaster. So that's a pretty interesting thing in itself because not a lot of brands have the IR blaster. It's pretty interesting because it is a very useful feature to me to be able to control, the TVs around the house with just one, phone. And I just think it's pretty cool. It even works on some appliances and stuff like that. So it's interesting. I know Samsung used to do it, but they took it out. So it's interesting because I think it's like a pretty top tier feature, especially if you're just, you hate remotes and stuff like that. But let's talk about the POCO F3. This phone has gotten the Android 13 update, MIUI 14. The update itself has been pretty good. I haven't noticed really any major issues with it. If you guys have the phone, have you noticed anything with this phone? Be sure to let us know. But the update has been relatively smooth. It's still pretty much functioning, how it was when I first got it. Still very fast, very fluid. So one of the things about the POCO F3 that I think really stands out is the actual design. I think still looks really great. To me, it looks like a flagship phone, honestly. It just has a beautiful camera design, which I absolutely love this look of this phone. So the phone itself, it does have a glass back, but the frame on here is plastic, but it still has, like I said, that premium feel to it. So it doesn't feel cheap, doesn't look cheap at all. And then also, it's got that texture on the back, so you don't see any fingerprints or anything like that. So I just think it's a really nice, well-built phone, and it feels very solid in the hand here. Also, another thing with the hardware is that it's got the in-display, or not the in-display, but the physical fingerprint scanner on the power button. I've talked about this, especially with one of my other favorite phones like the S10e that also does this method, and it feels more natural than the in-display one. I don't know why, just because when you naturally pick your phone up, right, you sort of like naturally put your hand right there. So it just feels like you don't really think about unlocking the phone. As with the in-display, you sort of like, it kind of feels like, you think about like, I have to press it. This feels more natural to me. So let me know what you guys think about that. It just feels faster. One of the awesome things about the F3 is that it has a pretty beautiful display. It's a 6.67 inch AMOLED display. It's 120 Hz HDR10 plus, and it gets up to 1300 nits peak brightness. It's a 1080p panel with 395 for the PPI. I think the panel is absolutely awesome. It's completely flat as well too, and colors look great. It's very easy to view outdoors, and not too much bezel going on this guy as well too. So the display is always just really nice, very colorful panel here, very high quality. And like I said, it's 120 Hz display, so this thing just flies when you're swiping and stuff like that. And also, I think MIUI has some pretty good animations. One thing that I like about this phone is that the app drawer, they just like, not only are you able to just see more apps like this, but you also have a few toggles up here. So again, a lot of people hate MIUI, a lot of people love MIUI. It's sort of split, I noticed. But me, I think it looks pretty nice. Now, yeah, it does kind of remind you of the iPhone. So I'll just give you guys an example. Like, just like that swipe down thing that the iPhone does, it does kind of look like iOS a little bit. And I think, like, I saw something where I think they were like, inspired by iOS or Steve Jobs or something like that. I'm not sure. But you could obviously tell this looks like, iPhone, right? But I think MIUI itself is fine. I like a few things, how the app drawer is laid out, how it's very easy to search for apps with that just being right there. Google Now is over here. I do really like how it's all laid out. And like I said, it's one of those highly customizable interfaces where you have a lot of stuff that you can play around with. It sort of reminds me of One UI. and you can just mess around with a lot of settings and stuff like that, you know, customize the phone without adding a bunch of apps to it. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the processor, because I think this is pretty much the main selling point with this phone. So one of the things that I said in my previous video was that mid-range phones are kind of slow, right? This phone has a fairly beefy processor, as we can see here. It's got the Snapdragon 870 chip on here, 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. So it's pretty fast phone when it comes to just flying in and out of applications. I just think it works, you know, just really smoothly. I've never had like major hiccups with this phone just coming in and out of applications. And like I said, the you know, the animations and everything are pretty smooth on here. Now, this phone having a pretty strong chipset, it does translate into gaming performance, so it just plays really well. It'll play better than, you know, your average mid-range like a Galaxy A54, or even, you know, some other, you know, popular mid-rangers like the Nothing phone and stuff like that. So like this chip is pretty good. We're at HDR Extreme on PUBG, and pretty much anything you throw at it, it'll do a fairly good job. Call of Duty Mobile, you know, Genshin, it does do a pretty good job with gaming performance. So definitely you can play games, and it doesn't seem to get too hot when gaming for long periods of time. Yeah, like any phone, it can get a little warm, but I think this chip is pretty efficient when it comes to, you know, just staying cool and giving you consistent frame rates. Alright, next would be the cameras. Now, the Poco F3 has some pretty good cameras on it still in 2023. So basically you're working with a 48 megapixel standard, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. I would have liked to see like a dedicated telephoto lens that could probably do like, you know, 3x or something like that. But it has 4K 30 video, 20 megapixel selfie cam, does 1080 60. So again, you can see like the spec wise, you can see like, you know, it's kind of in that mid-range category because there's no 4K 60. The front camera doesn't do 4K 60. But as far as stills, it actually takes some pretty good stills in my opinion. I was actually pretty impressed with the image quality. You know, just the overall colors I was getting was very vibrant. It does somewhat decent in low light. And like I said, video is fine too as well. So overall, it is a fairly good it's a fairly good phone when it comes to the image quality for sure, guys. The macro camera is okay. It does a pretty decent job. But like I said, you know, it's pretty decent actually. This phone also has stereo speakers. So you got pretty strong speakers on this phone as well. Also guys, so I know it seems like you know, this phone is kind of like a flagship phone, but there's some you know, things about this phone that, you know, you basically know it's like a mid-ranger, like again the plastic sides. And also this phone does not have IP68 dust and water resistance, IP53 splash proof. So it won't perform as good as, you know, something that's actually certified to go underwater. Alright, so another thing about this phone is there's no wireless charging. Even though this has pretty, you know, fairly decent charging speeds at 33 watts, there's no wireless charging. So again, those are sort of like the things that, you know, kind of make it a mid-ranger. Alright, one thing about this phone is that it has a pretty decent sized battery. It has a 4,520 milliamp battery. And I've never had this phone die on me in a day ever, not even close. So the battery life is pretty good. I consider this an all-day phone for sure. And again, I'm a lighter user, but I feel like even if you're a heavier user, you should be able to get to the day pretty easy with this phone. So it's just a very impressive phone. I really like it. It has aged well since it's, you know, first came out. The software is still pretty good on here, and also the speed is just excellent. It just looks really nice in my opinion, feels nice in the hand. And like I said, you just have sort of like a flagship kind of experience here, you know, minus some of the stuff we talked about. But other than that, I think it's a solid phone. So what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.